Former U.S. Secretary of the Army. He joins me now live from Maryland. Mr. Secretary, great to have you here with us on TRT World. So, if the president does go ahead and sends the National Guard over the objection of the governor and the mayor, what precedent does that set from your perspective as a former Army Secretary? Are we inching towards the military playing a bigger role, maybe even political role inside American cities?
That is certainly the danger that is precisely what the president has in mind. And it's both inappropriate from a historical perspective. The U.S. was founded actually, in part, the Declaration of Independence was against King George's housing of troops in the homes of colonists at the time. And so we've had this long tradition where the military's role is protection of national security, but states have their own rights and cities are independent and responsible for local law enforcement. So we've never had a national police, and certainly the military should not be serving as that national police. There are both laws that prohibit that, a law called the Posse Comitatus Act, and it's also inappropriate because our principles are that it should be local law enforcement, part of the community, not outsiders, certainly not federal officers who enforce local law enforcement. It's a terrible precedent, and it's leading us toward the military. I mean, as a former Secretary of the Army, as a former defense official, the military counts on the support of all of the American people as a nonpartisan institution for its budget, for its recruitment, for its support when we're engaged around the world, and to be seen as a partisan political tool of any president undermines support of the military.
Now, Mr. Secretary, we have seen the National Guard sent to cities before, like in Los Angeles and Washington, D.C., and there is certainly a lot of difference of opinion, rather, among experts on this issue. Some say that it does calm things down, while others think it makes the situation worse. From your perspective, do troops on the ground really bring down violence, or do they risk adding fuel to the fire?
Well, I don't believe that they add very much, given the incredible cost of deploying troops, housing them, feeding them. They're not well trained for these missions. In fact, in Washington, D.C., they're picking up litter and raking leaves because they have nothing else useful to do. So this is not a good use of military personnel who are being taken away from their families, their employers. These are people who have civilian jobs. If you want to help cities fight crime, give them the money to hire local police. That would be a more effective, efficient, and it wouldn't be unconstitutional the way trying to use the military for these purposes is constitutional. I think what President Trump likes is he likes the fact that they're in uniforms, that they carry military weapons, that they have tanks and armored personnel and other kinds of things that clearly signify that these are federal forces being directed by the president, not by local elected officials or a local police chief. And it's really about making himself, what many people fear, which is an autocrat, not just as a label, but in reality.
Right. It's interesting that you say that because the president has been pointing to Labor Day weekend shootings as proof that Chicago is out of control. But the city's own numbers show shootings and homicides have actually dropped pretty sharply this year. So what's your navigation through this, the perception that the city is a hellhole versus what the data is showing?
Well, the United States has a terrible gun violence problem, as we saw just recently in the school in Wisconsin. More than 30,000 people are killed a year in shooting incidents. If the president wants to do something about that, he ought to address gun violence, including getting military-style assault weapons out of the hands of civilian ownership. There are ways to address gun violence. There are ways to improve policing, but it isn't going to be helped by, kind of a show of force of having uniformed military personnel in parks and on the streets.
Now, Mr. Secretary, before I let you go, very quickly, if you were advising Donald Trump today, what would you tell him?
Well, Well, if he really is so concerned about local law enforcement, that is not a federal responsibility. That's a responsibility of local elected officials who have to go before their own voters. He ought to give cities more money that they can use to hire more police officers. He certainly could ask Congress to pass a law to improve criminal justice laws if he thinks that somehow they are too lenient. Or he could send federal law enforcement agents. There are federal law enforcement agents who are charged with enforcing federal law who are not military personnel. The military needs to do its job, and that relates to training for military roles, which is what maintains readiness, maintaining their equipment. That's what the military is all about. People join the military to protect the nation against foreign threats, not to be on the street corners of cities that the president doesn't happen to like.
Fascinating insights. Louis Caldera, thanks very much for joining me here on TRT World. I really appreciate your taking out the time.